Do you wish you could make your English writing more advanced? I'm going to give you 50 tips on how to do this. And if you want to make your English more advanced every week, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I've arranged these 50 tips into 4 main groups: noun prominent, clause combinations, extensive synonyms, and choose the right style. We'll start with noun prominent. Simple writing is heavy with clauses, but complex writing is heavy with nouns. Compare these. The Mona Lisa is a famous painting. It comes from the Renaissance period. 2 sentences, 2 clauses. But the more complex version, a famous painting from the Renaissance period, is the Mona Lisa. 1 sentence, 1 clause, but far more in terms of nouns. All of the underlined words in the second example are part of a noun phrase, and noun phrases are longer combinations of words that represent a noun. For example, a famous painting from the Renaissance period has the main noun as painting, but it also has an adjective, famous, an article, a, and then a preposition phrase afterwards, from the Renaissance period. And we can make these noun phrases that contain a whole wealth of information all encapsulated in one noun. And this makes the writing more complex. We could also have added a relative clause after the main noun too. So to make your writing more advanced, use fewer clauses and use more noun phrases. Secondly, clause combinations. Here's our sentence about the Mona Lisa again. But let's add another one. A famous painting from the modern period is Starry Night. Here we have 2 independent sentences. But to make our writing more complex, we could join them together, perhaps like this. A famous painting from the Renaissance period is the Mona Lisa, whereas a famous painting from the modern period is Starry Night. What have we done here? We've added a subordinator. And this joins an independent clause to a dependent clause. Examples are whereas, because, since, until, although. There are lots and lots of examples, and I have a video on this, 55 advanced linkers in English, which will help you. A link is in the description below. We could also link sentences in other ways too. However, Picasso was a cubist. Now here, however, doesn't join 2 clauses together to keep them within the same sentence. However is a conjunctive adverb, and this links a sentence to the previous one. So however introduces a new sentence, but it shows that it's linked clearly to the one before. And examples of conjunctive adverbs are furthermore, however, in contrast, meanwhile, and therefore. And another type is paired conjunctions. For example, neither Van Gogh nor Picasso are still alive now. Neither nor. This is a paired conjunction. And paired conjunctions introduce 2 grammatically equal items. Some examples are both and, either or, neither nor, not only but also, whether and or. So this will make your writing more complex by introducing 2 different items that are linked through paired conjunctions. Next, extensive synonyms. And by extensive synonyms, I mean the ways that we replace words in texts. First of all, simple synonyms. And this is where you replace a word with another word that has a similar meaning. For instance, Monet produced many examples of art during his life. His paintings can be seen in galleries around the world. In the first sentence I used art, and in the second sentence I used paintings. They are synonyms of each other in certain contexts. The word painting has a similar meaning to art, so I replace it to make my writing more varied and therefore more advanced. But I could also use something called word families. Word families is when you use the same root word in different ways. Look at the next example. Monet was considered to be a talented artist. His art has been sold for large sums of money. So the root word is the same, art, but artist is the person and art is the object. If you use the same root word, but you have different prefixes and suffixes with them, you create a connection through your text, through that root word, but you keep varying the vocabulary because you're using different variations of that root word, and that helps make your writing more advanced too. We can also use group nouns. This is where you repeat a noun in the context of the group it belongs to. Look at the example here. Monet was an impressionist, but Picasso was a cubist. These artists made a significant contribution to the world of art. So these artists is a group noun that encompasses Monet and Picasso. We're repeating the same words, but we put them into a group. Again, this creates more variety in your writing, better connections between sentences and different parts of your text, and therefore makes your writing more advanced. If you're finding this video useful, you might find my Improve Your English Writing course useful too. On this course, you'll learn much more about sentence formation, paragraph formation, punctuation, essay writing, letter writing, and social media writing too. There's a link below this video in the description that takes you to the place where you can find out more about this course. Now, so far on this video, I've concentrated on language issues to make your writing more advanced. But there's a huge area called style, which will also help make your writing more advanced. And I'm going to spend the rest of the video helping you improve your style of writing. Your style of writing depends upon the type of text you're writing. Here are 3 examples. There are more than this, but these are 3 very common writing types. And you need to know how to structure them and organize them in English. Essays, reports, and narratives. Essays involve using the evidence of others. Reports involve presenting your own evidence amongst other things that you'll do, which I'll explain later. And narratives predominantly are storytelling devices. I'm now going to use 3 examples, one for each type of text, to show you what's happening. First of all, with essays. Here's a short paragraph that could have come from the middle of an essay. Planes are the fastest vehicles. Most studies find that planes can travel at 1,000 kilometers per hour. This is much faster than trains and boats. So what are the characteristics of this short paragraph? Well, first of all, you'll notice that the first sentence is a topic sentence. And this is a sentence that describes and sums up all of the information that will be in the rest of the paragraph. So you can read this first sentence and quickly understand what the purpose of the whole paragraph is. That's a topic sentence. Next, you'll see that there's evidence collected by others. Most studies find. That means I'm introducing information from other research that's been done by other people. Be careful to make sure that you use the correct way of citing other people's work in your essay if you're doing this for academic purposes. Next, travel at 1,000 kilometers an hour. Well, this is a justification of the main point. The main point is that planes are the fastest vehicles. So now, because it's an essay, we need to justify that main point with evidence. Planes are the fastest vehicles. They could travel at 1,000 kilometers per hour. That supports the information that we've presented in the first topic sentence. And there's clear linking of points. We'll use words that help to link from one sentence to another. We may use some of the subordinators or conjunctive adverbs that we looked at earlier, but there's a whole range of referring devices that we might use too, such as this. This links the information from the sentence before to the information that's coming after. The overall aim of an essay paragraph is supported statements of fact. So this paragraph ends with a statement of fact. This is much faster than trains and boats, but you can see that this fact is supported by what's come before. So that's a very quick, simple look at an essay paragraph. What about in a report though? Let's look at this example paragraph from the results section of the report. Results from this study demonstrate that planes travel at 1,000 kilometers per hour and trains travel at 400 kilometers per hour. Therefore, planes are faster. Similar to the essay, but there are some differences too. Firstly, there's reference to your own work here. Who discovered the information in this paragraph? It was the people who wrote the report. The people who wrote the report investigated the topic and they found this. Now, sometimes that can be combined with information that other people have written too, but the emphasis on a report is that you go out and you find the evidence that you need to get answers to your questions. In the essay, you're demonstrating what other people have discovered to answer your question. Sometimes they can overlap, but you see the difference in the purpose. In the report, it's about you getting it. In the essay, it's about you reporting what others and analysing what others have said. In a report as well, there's descriptions of your own findings. So after we've introduced results from this study, the words that say that this is your own work, then we go on to the description of what you actually found. And here it's the speeds of the train and the plane. And then there will be interpretation of your own findings too. Therefore, planes are faster. Whilst essays and reports have quite a lot in common, narratives are quite different. Firstly, narratives involve reference to people's perceptions, what we see, what we feel, what we hear, what we sense. For example, here we say, we were amazed to discover how fast a plane travels. So see the difference here. We're focusing on our feelings here, not evidence that we discovered. There's also progression of events in time. The first sentence is followed by this, when we got to the train station. Use of the word when indicates that there has been movement in time from what came before up until now. Another consideration when choosing between different styles or types of text is what kind of register is right for that text. Essays tend to be what's called mostly formal. Reports are generally formal too, but narratives are informal. So we need to know what the difference is between formal writing and informal writing. Here are some of the main ones. Firstly, formal writing avoids contractions, but informal writing uses contractions frequently. Contractions are where we shorten two words together with an apostrophe. For example, I am becoming I'm. Also, fewer negatives are found in formal writing as compared to informal writing. So in informal writing, we may well use phrases such as not much. In formal writing, we probably prefer something such as little. Now, you can use negatives in formal writing, but the proportion is less. Formal writing doesn't try to speak to the reader, but informal writing does. Compare these two short sentences. You should listen, people should listen. Which one is speaking to the reader? It's the first one. You should listen. This is an example of text that tries to speak from the page to the people who are reading. But if you are writing formally, don't try to do that. Don't make it I and you, we and you. Keep it in the third person, where you're not referring to anyone, so you can let the information speak for itself. Also, formal writing does not use multi-word verbs very often. What do I mean by a multi-word verb? Well, compare what you can see on the screen here. Emerge and come out. Come out is a multi-word verb. It's a verb with two words. Emerge is the one-word alternative. Formal writing would prefer emerge. Informal writing could use either, but will probably prefer come out. Formal writing is more specific than informal writing. Informal writing can be quite vague. Which figure is the most specific above me here? 28% is more specific than quite a few. With quite a few, we get an impression, but we don't really know exactly what is meant, and that's more informal. Formal writing has a limited range of punctuation to the symbols you can see on the left here, the comma, the full stop, the colon and the semicolon. In informal writing, we have more varied punctuation. We can introduce a dash, a question mark or an exclamation mark. There's formal vocabulary and informal vocabulary. Manager is considered the more formal version of the word boss. So if you're speaking in a more colloquial setting or writing to someone who's a friend, perhaps in a quick email, you might write boss. But if you're trying to be more professional in your writing, never write boss. Always write manager because it's the more formal alternative. And formal writing is more complex than informal writing. Compare these sentences here. The first one, a number of videos have investigated formality in English. The second example is less formal. Some videos study English formality. Why? There are fewer words. The noun phrase is not as dense. In the first example, a number of videos, 4 words. In the second, some videos, 2 words. So we are more complex in formal writing. And formal writing is more structured, whereas informal writing is less structured. Let's look at that last point a little bit more now. So whilst we now understand that essays and reports are more formal than narratives, it's also important to know that essays have a clear structure, reports have several structures involved, but narratives are more flexible in terms of their structures. First of all, a typical essay structure would typically have an introduction section, then a main body, which is actually the largest part, and then a conclusion. The introduction would always begin by providing context, background to the topic, introduce the words from the title, explain the problem or the significance of the topic, leading into why we are writing the essay in the first place. Then this leads to setting the essay's aims, sometimes called the thesis statement. 1 sentence or perhaps 2 sentences that make it clear the direction the essay is going to go in on the particular topic. In a way, it almost gives the conclusion before you've even started. And then there'll be something called an outline that explains a little bit more about how the essay is going to be organised. In the main body, we have several paragraphs that essentially do this. They introduce claims about the particular topic that the essay is based upon, and then each paragraph will support the claims in a number of ways, perhaps examples, explanations, or anything that can give good evidence and good reasons why the claims are true, or in some situations to explain why a claim is not true. Then we'll finish with a conclusion. This restates the thesis statement. It shows how the essay as a whole supports it. So it will summarise the information from the main body in short to show why the thesis statement is supported or true. Many essays will finish with a call to a response or a statement about how this affects the future. But it does depend on the essay itself. Sometimes a look to the future is not included, but very often it is, because the purpose of the essay is normally to teach us something that will be useful for our lives or the world after reading it. A report structure is often different to an essay structure. And this structure is a very simplified version of what you might do when you're writing a thesis or a dissertation or some kind of business report. You'll start with an introduction. This is similar to the introduction to the essay. You provide context in the same way and you set the aims and an outline. But then you get to what's called a method section. Now, what happens next can vary, and sometimes there's an extra section called a literature review that looks at all the evidence that's existed from the past on this topic. But often we'll go straight to a method section. In the method section, we state what data was collected by us, the researchers, and also why was it collected this particular way. We're now going into the part of the report where we discuss what we do to get the results to answer the question set in the introduction. Here's the section which describes how we do that, and then we have the results and discussion section, which begins by describing the data that we found and saying what the data means. So we present our data, we make it logical for the reader, we analyse it, and we try and identify what meaning we can get from the results that we discovered ourselves. We may also compare our results to results found by others in the past. We're trying to further knowledge about this topic, or we're trying to get some information that will help others make an important decision, perhaps in industry. And then, as with the essay, we'll conclude in the same way, summing up what we discovered and stating what that means for the future, perhaps in terms of recommendations for ourselves or what others should do based on the results. Now, there are lots of different reports, so check the style of your particular report by writing it. If you have to write an academic report, there may be some differences that vary from this pattern, but this pattern is a good starting point for any report. And don't forget, if you want to get hundreds of advanced English writing tips, try my course, Improve Your English Writing. Click on the link in the description below now to find out more.